to try and share some information with you tonight. I've got some notes I'm going to go through, and then I'm going to have staff provide you with some information, and then we'll do questions and answers. So I'll ask that you hold your questions till the end. But if you think of a question and you want to write it down and stick it up on one of the parking lot sheets around the room, that way if we don't get to them by the end of the evening, because we do have a 2-hour stop, we will sit and I'll explain what we're going to do after this to keep you in contact with all the information. I know this microphone, I've got to hold it really close. If I get too loud or anything, please tell me. I know there are a lot of rumors floating around about this situation, and that's what we're here to address tonight. And before we begin the formal presentation, I'll take a few minutes to introduce some people here with me, their roles, share the purpose of the meeting, and a little bit of background information. We do have 2 translators here. If anybody needs translation in Urdu or Tamil, please raise your hand, and Andrew, here's one of our 2 translators are down here. Okay, and their 3rd translator is here. So it's Urdu, Bengali, and Tamil, right? Okay, so if you need the translation, please indicate and we'll accommodate you. Now, as I was preparing for tonight's meeting weeks and weeks ago, I knew it was important to connect with the other elected representatives of this area. And to accomplish that, I've met with City Councillor Paul Ainsley, and I want to thank Paul for being here tonight. I did see him he's right up front with me now, okay. Paul has generously offered his assistance in communicating any messages we need to about future meetings or details about tonight's meeting or anything through his e-newsletter and on his website. So thank you, Paul, and welcome. Also, the superintendent and I met with Minister of Education Mitzi Hunter and her staff to share the data and information that we will be sharing tonight. And both Superintendent Stadnick and I were very impressed by the Minister's understanding of the situation, support for the process, and the need for positive change. But unfortunately, Mitzi Hunter's not able to be with us tonight, but I think she was going to send a staff rep. I haven't seen Kamisha. Is anyone here from her office? Oh, okay. I also met with Bob from the GVCA, and we've talked at length again about this meeting and what I was going to share with you. And I appreciate your help getting the message out to members across the community. And obviously, we were very successful through Twitter and your messages and all the notices. And I really appreciate this great turnout. I'm a little nervous, but I do appreciate it. So with me tonight is Superintendent of Education Carrie Lynn Stadnick, who has the responsibility for the schools in the Guild area and has had for a number of years. She knows the schools and the community very well. She actually grew up in the Guild and attended Simcoe Minor and Laurier. And Carrie Lynn's admin liaison, Teresa Averino Morrow, she's over here taking notes now. She has set up all the sign-in sheets and everything. And Andrew Chua is doing all the logistics for us tonight, made sure we had the rooms, had the tech crew, and everything. So I thank you, Andrew. We have 3 of our principals here tonight. So I'd like to introduce Jim Clark, principal of Jack Minor. Joanne Simmons is hiding back there. She's the principal of Poplar Road. And Eccleston Richards is the principal of Guildwood Junior. Unfortunately, Principal Arlene Knights was not able to join us tonight due to personal reasons, but I can assure you that she has been part of all the process to date and all of the discussions that have been held, and she will continue to be so. Jeff McMacken, this tall gentleman standing here, is from our planning department, and I've worked with Jeff for years and years, and he intimately knows the schools, the enrollment patterns, and the communities here in Scarborough, where he's worked for many, many years. He's a true resource for us for information and ideas, and he'll be presenting a lot of the data to you tonight. Jeff Latto's sitting over here in the corner with the glasses on his head. is the senior manager of major capital projects, and he's been very involved with our pre-meetings as well. And I thank all of them for being here and being prepared to answer the questions raised by you tonight. I was supposed to have a central coordinating principal from special education, Lori Moore, here. I haven't seen Lori. I don't know. Maybe she got stuck in the rain. Okay, tonight's community meeting is just that. It's a community meeting. It is not part of any formal pupil accommodation review. I know it has been put out there that this is part of the formal process. It is not. In fact, when I first brought up the fact that I wanted to do this community meeting and have staff support it, I was told no by the staff because it's not formally part of the process that is laid out in the policy and procedures of the Toronto District School Board and the ministry for the whole park setting. However, over the summer, I've had a number of calls, emails from people in the community saying that, they saw the article in the Star and they wanted to know more information about it. And I made a commitment to have this meeting. That's why we're here tonight. And I had to go to the associate director, Carla Kisco, and I told her about the community wanting this information and that I had said I was going to give it, and I would either do it by myself or with staff and be much better with staff. So she agreed and said it was fine for the staff to attend and participate. But I want to start off by assuring you that despite the rumors, despite what you may have heard or surmised about these schools, no decision has been made. No decisions will be made tonight. No votes will occur of any type tonight. It's an evening of sharing information, listening to input, and answering as many questions as we can. And I hope you all signed in tonight because we intend to create an email list from the sign-ins and then share further information, including the questions that we don't get to tonight because of either time or we don't have that data with us. We're going to send out notice of future meetings, of developments as they go, and the information about how you would make a formal deputation to the board, the Toronto District School Board through one of their committees. All that will come through the email. So if you haven't signed in, please see Teresa at some point and make sure she has your information. So use your post-it notes that you got to jot down any questions and stick them up on the parking lots, and we will use those as the basis of the questions. We'll go first to the microphone, and anybody can ask questions from the floor. So after the board passed a motion to start a study of these schools, along with a lot of other groupings of schools right across the TDSB, the local feasibility team was created to decide if a recommendation was to go forward to the board to start the PARC process. PARC is Pupil Accommodation Review Committee. And we haven't even got permission to do that yet. We're in the very preliminary stages at this point in time. And the members of that committee were the superintendent, the 4 principals of the schools, representation from the planning department and capital project staff, and the trustee. And we've met 4 times prior to tonight. And during those meetings, we went through all of the enrollment data, and much of it you're going to see tonight, the projections for the next 5 to 10 years, the capacity of the schools, the facility conditions of all the schools, and options. We spent a lot of time looking at options to try and attract more students into these schools. But before we can go to a formal PARC process, it would have to go to the Board of Trustees at their November 25th meeting, I believe it's November 25th, and last week in November meeting, and they would have to approve that the PARC starts, and we'll go through timelines after later on. 23rd, sorry, okay. The LFT, Local Feasibility Team, looked first at the possibility of adding programs to the schools that would add significantly to their population. We don't need to find 2 kids here and 4 kids there. We need to significantly grow the populations in some of these schools. So we looked at extended or immersion French programs. We looked at special ed classes being added. But then we got in contact with the French department, and they told us that every family that applied for either French or extended French or immersion French by the deadline last year got a placement. So there's really no need for further extended or immersion classes in this part of the city. Special education did not need more intensive support classrooms in this area. In fact, since we're trying to limit transitions for our students who need special ed, there's a very real possibility that some of the existing programs in our schools could be closed over the next couple of years. For the record, in this area, we have gifted classes in Simcoe and Minor, and DD classes, developmentally delayed classes, at Poplar Road. There's also extended French classes at Poplar Road for grades 4 to 6. And an LD class at Simcoe as well, right? Learning disability class. And then from residents, like I said, through the calls and emails I got over the summer, I got various suggestions, and we discussed them as the LFT at length. We considered the development of an echo school as a unique school with a special program. That we researched information to see if a pre-IB program with a pathway here to Laurier was a viable option. One resident suggested we put a sign in front of one of the schools to promote the outstanding activities going on in that school. And I got to tell you, we've got outstanding activities going on in all schools, but I could not find any data anywhere that said a sign makes a difference, a significant difference in enrollment. I did look, and I talked to people at the board about that, but I couldn't find anything. We also, as a committee, decided, well, we're going to connect through Jeff Latto, we're going to connect with the city itself and see, okay, if we're talking about rearranging, realigning schools and maybe making some K-8 schools or new builds or whatever, what schools is that possible on? And of the 4 schools, they came right away and said, you cannot do a major addition on Jack Minor because of its proximity to the bluffs. So a number of residents have said to me, if you're going to make changes, make Jack Minor the K-8 school, because it's the newest of them, and it's the nicest of the 4 buildings, is the way it was worded to me. But that's not feasible, because if we were putting kindergarten to grade 6 also in there, we'd have to do some pretty major renovations and additions. In our discussions, I'm going to be totally honest with you tonight, we did discuss each school individually and the impact that closing each one of them would have. We talked about closing 2 schools at a time with the intent, if we close 2 of the properties, of building 2 brand new 21st century schools on their existing property. So going from 4 to 2, but with the new builds. We discussed moving all the schools in the area to K-8 schools. We had lengthy conversations about the possibility of closing 2 of the schools, but keeping one of them and repurposing it for use by the board as either a professional development center, an arts center, and still have the ability to permit it out at nights to the community, because that's one of the things Mitzi Hunter identified as a real need in the community, spots to be permitted out. Again, we looked at those things. We as a committee really recognize that closing or repurposing of the 50s, and Jack Minor, as I said, is the newest, and it was opened in 1970. And when these schools were built, at that time, the whole idea in urban centers across Ontario, but the times they have changed, and you can witness those changes any day of the school year by driving by any one of these schools about 8:30 or 3:15. Very few of our students actually walk to school anymore. Yes, some do, no question about that. But just look at the traffic problems, because that's one of the major issues I deal with every year, is traffic and illegal parking and things like that in front of every school in the ward. When meeting with Minister Hunter, she said, quote, "The community is changing. The need to conserve green space for the community." And we take that into consideration before any decision is made. Busing. And so we had to look at that, and how many changes that would make and what costs that would. We've looked at all that. We looked at daycares. Of the 4 schools, 3 of them have daycare. Part of our goal is to maintain or increase the number of spaces within this community for daycare. We have no control whatsoever over subsidies as a board, but we know there's a need for at least that number of spaces and maybe more. And about the process for the daycares. But we're very aware of them, and we know how important they are in the community. And finally, before I call on Jeff to share the data and information, or is Carrie Lynn going first? Carrie Lynn's going first. I want to, in the future, they must be viewed through the Education Act requirement that trustees and student well-being, and it must be looked at through the lens of equity. So I'd ask, as Jeff is presenting you data, that you hold on to your questions till the questions cards at one of the tables out there. If you grab those, there's two different ones, but it doesn't matter. The contact information